Hello and welcome to Views from the Sideline. It's July 24th, 2018, and do we have a big show for you today. On today's show, we talk Kawhi to the Six, DeRozan shocked, hurt, and heading to the Alamo, Melo to Atlanta, then Houston, and Dennis Schroeder off to OKC. Let's get into it.
Deal is final. The Spurs will send Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green to the Raptors for DeMar Derozan, Jakob Hurtel, and a 2019 first-round pick. League sources tell me the Raptors.
And Woj right there, breaking some news. When we got off the airwaves last week, Kawhi was still a San Antonio Spur.
How about that Jakob Hurtel trade?
Yeah, seriously, Jakob headed to San Antonio.
So
but
what do we think about Jakob?
What do you mean? What do we think about
Pop
Jakob?
is going to turn him into the next Rasho Nesterovic. I believe it in my heart.
No, I think Jakob's actually going to be like
a
solid
he's
starting
gonna be better
center.
than Rasho Nesterovic.
He'll definitely get some time.
I think he'll be a solid starting center when his career is like when he's in his prime, like a Chris Kaman type player.
Maybe.
But yeah, we're gonna get into the Kawhi stuff. But there was some headline news as we were getting into the studio today. It threw me for a loop. I wasn't expecting it. I want to get your guys' take on it too. The Cleveland Cavaliers expect to sign Kevin Love to a 4-year, $120 million extension. That's coming from Adrian Wojnarowski, Brian Windhorst, guys that are in the know when it comes to the Cleveland Cavaliers. What's your initial reaction? 'Cause to me, I'm shocked.
Okay, I guess it's all me then.
Go ahead, Malik.
I was shocked at first, but then as I thought about it more, Kevin Love has played in Cleveland for 4 years. I think he's comfortable with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's comfortable with Tyronn Lue. I think he wants to be in the spotlight again. He was the guy in Minnesota, and he was comfortable being the guy because he knew how good he was. And now that he has a young bull, which is actually his nickname, he has a young bull in Colin Sexton, who I'm sure he completely believes in at this point. He likes his teammates. He may not be the old Kevin Love of Minnesota, but when he's healthy, he can still put up 20 and 10, maybe 21 and 10.
To back up your point that he might not be the Kevin Love of old, I saw a stat today that without LeBron James on the floor this past year, Kevin Love averaged 27.5 points per game and almost 15 rebounds for his per 36 numbers. That's
old Kevin Love.
That's old Kevin
Yeah,
Love.
when you give the ball to Kevin Love, the thing was when he played with LeBron, as it happened with Chris Bosh, happened with Kevin Love, you become a spot-up shooter, whether it's mid-range or three-point, which it was the three-pointer for Kevin Love. In Minnesota, you put him in the post and you play through the post, and he could also hit three-point shots. In Cleveland, he became a three-point shooter that could play in the post.
Yeah.
Last year, they started to give the ball to Kevin Love in the post more and just let him go to work. In that Toronto series, he ripped apart Serge Ibaka and Jonas Valanciunas. Whoever you put in front of him, Kevin Love just got rid of them because he's that good in the post. And when you give the ball to him in the post and let him play through there, and then he starts to get comfortable at the three-point line, he is a force to be reckoned with. And now he can go back to doing that.
You know, the thing that shocked me the most, it's not that Kevin Love signed the deal, it's that Cleveland offered it. To me, I thought this was going to be a full-blown rebuild, which they should do. Golden State's going to rule the NBA for the next 3 to 4 years. Why don't you just strip it down, get your best assets for Kevin Love, and start building around Colin Sexton? That's the logical move to me. Joey, what's your thoughts here?
I like the move, actually.
For
I like
Kevin
them.
and Cleveland?
Yeah, for both, actually.
I love it for Kevin.
Because
Cleveland still has a star.
I mean,
I think Kevin
still
Love.
have a
I think
star.
Kevin Love is a star, and I think he's been overlooked throughout the whole LeBron era. He's been heavily scrutinized throughout the LeBron era too, which I don't think is entirely deserving.
It's not his fault.
People just always look to when Cleveland loses. They don't always look to LeBron or some of the other guys. They're always like, oh, well, Kevin Love had a bad shooting night. It's Kevin Love. It's always Kevin Love. For some reason, when they've had to transform his game into, like Malik said, more one-dimensional, and he's a lot better than that. He's played through 2 different eras of the NBA. He's played through as they swapped over, as they went to stretch fours. When Kevin Love first came into the league, he was a lot heavier. he didn't shoot a lot of threes, and he wasn't the
He was
greatest
strictly a
three-point
post
shooter
player at first,
going
yeah.
into it. But he slowly stretched out his game, became that stretch four. He slimmed down a little bit as he came to Cleveland. But he still got that brute strength that he brought to Minnesota. So I think the combination of going through that allows him to now have more to his game even. And that's really dangerous for that position to have that kind of guy. And like we said, people forget he was a easy 25 and 15 a night guy for the longest time until he kind of made a sacrifice to come to Cleveland and try to win. And they ended up winning. I don't know how much he contributed, but
He contributed a good
at
amount.
least, but it was a good run, and I think Cleveland wants to stay relevant. I don't think they want to fall into the complete dumpster of being so much of a rebuild where it's going to take them years to get out of. I think this allows them an opportunity to use some of these young pieces that they got last year and to see if Jordan Clarkson, Rodney Hood, Kevin Love, Colin Sexton, if they can flourish more now that they're out of the LeBron team and it's more of an actual team atmosphere, because I think LeBron demands certain things of his players, and that might change some of their play styles a bit. So now I think Cleveland is going to experiment with what they have without LeBron, and I think it's pretty good. I think they're close to the playoff race. I think they're on the edge because the end of the Eastern Conference is so up for grabs. I think there's a possibility that if they play well, that these guys like George Hill, Jordan Clarkson, Rodney Hood, Tristan Thompson, they're talented enough. They're obviously not going to go anywhere, but they're talented enough, I think, to be at the 8th seed.
Weren't we talking about during the NBA Finals and the playoffs how LeBron absolutely carried this corpse of a team? And you know what's left? This corpse of a team plus Colin Sexton.
And Colin Sexton is going to be a good player.
That's fine. He's nowhere near the
But you
LeBron
also
James caliber.
you take away a lot of guys' confidence when their team is run through the LeBron and they're run through that LeBron's scope.
That's what I was
from the
about to get to,
viewing
yes.
people. When you're heavily scrutinized as a team, you're LeBron's team. You're expected to win everything. You're expected to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, to the NBA Finals, because LeBron has been there every year for the past 8 years. That's a lot of pressure for some of these young guys, and they haven't experienced that yet. Now they've kind of gone through it, and they can make a name for themselves without LeBron and prove that, Rodney Hood was a 16-point per game player in the Utah, and then he comes to Cleveland and he disappears, doesn't even play.
Well, I think that's partly on Ty Lue.
Right.
But yeah. No,
But LeBron is definitely involved in the coaching
course.
of that
Yeah.
team.
Of
So I,
course.
I think it just changes their dynamic and gives these guys some more confidence.
no.
You also have to look at the distinction between a team and a LeBron team. That team that was carried was a LeBron team. Without LeBron, they just have to be a basketball team, which is two different things. LeBron left Miami. Eric Spoelstra built them back into a good basketball
But they
team.
still missed the playoffs the first year.
They did.
And they were not good.
He had to give those young guys confidence, and D-Wade had to get healthy. He had to get everything back together for that team to become good again. That's what Cleveland is facing right now. Can you become a good team without LeBron?
See, I argue that Miami Heat team that he left the last time was way better than this Cleveland team that's left. But
It was a different team when he
But
left,
to play,
though.
but to play devil's advocate, the East is a lot easier this coming year than what it was. I get your views, I really do. If they play as a team, they could do something. I just don't see it. To me,
I'm just curious, what do you think they could have gotten for Kevin Love if they tried to
Via
trade
trade?
him or something? Because otherwise they lose into free agency.
I think you can get a young player like a Jakob Poeltl and maybe a future pick.
And see, I just feel like that puts you in such a rebuild that it would be
That's what I'm
so
saying.
hard to dig yourself out of.
Well,
though.
I don't think it's. I mean, if you're rebuilding, you're trying to be bad.
Right, and I get that, but
You need to bottom out in the NBA.
you also don't want to be stuck in turmoil like
But let me
the Kings.
let me hit you with this real quick.
it's hard to be the Kings.
Okay,
The Queens. It's very
Right.
hard to be the Queens.
But Cleveland's known that for a long time in their franchise. So.
the Pistons tried to rebuild on the fly when they traded Chauncey Billups. They let Sheed
well,
walk.
that was a bad trade. So
I'm just saying. They sign Ben Gore and they make these big signings because they want to stay relevant. They haven't been relevant in 10 years.
Mhm.
That's what Cleveland, without rebuilding, is risking. Staying in the NBA mediocrity. I can't talk. Mediocrity. Where you're just a 12 to a 7 seed.
Mediocrity is worse than being bad.
Exactly. That's just my view. That yes, I know Kevin Love's a good player and they have the potential to be a solid team and to be exciting. But at the end of the day, this business is about winning championships. This way is not going to win you a championship.
Don't they have expiring contracts this year or after this year?
Korver's got a big expiring contract. Oh no, he's not. He signed long term last year.
I feel like I saw they have a couple expiring contracts that would give them some bit of
maybe
salary space. I don't know how much. Yeah,
I'd have to look into it. I don't want to spend too much more time on Kevin Love. He's in Cleveland. Yeah. Let's get that out of the way.
I like Kevin Love though, so.
But let's transition here to really the big news in the Eastern Conference and in the NBA. Kawhi Leonard traded to the Toronto Raptors. Let me hit you with the trade details here if you missed what Woj said earlier in the show. Raptors get Kawhi Leonard, who is an unrestricted free agent next summer with a desire to play in Los Angeles, plus Danny Green. Spurs get DeMar DeRozan, who's under contract for 3 years. Jakob Poeltl, still on his rookie deal, and a top 20 protected first-round pick. First reactions when you heard the deal. And then I'm going to ask you guys to grade it, but first reactions.
Surprised.
But we talked about it last week on the show that this was even odds. I mean,
Right. But I think like a lot of people, I was surprised that the Raptors were willing to pull the trigger. It was a surprise that they would be willing to trade DeMar DeRozan, which is arguably the best Raptor of all time.
That's another question.
Based on stats.
I can't wait to ask you that question.
Well, I think you know my answer.
So Malik, what was your first reaction?
I was also very shocked because last week I predicted that nothing would happen before the season because there were so many teams involved and so many rumors that he could go one place or another. I didn't see anything happening. So for the Raptors to jump in, and I'm sure they've been in talks for the past month, but It seems like in the past week they just popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah, and
then
get something done.
And then for him to become a Raptor and for them to give up DeMar DeRozan, and you saw the backlash from the rest of the players in the NBA all over social media
because it was shady. It was a shady move.
It was a shockwave sent through the rest of the league because nobody could really believe DeMar DeRozan just got sent like that. So
especially because
it was a shocking move.
A week before, I mean, there's the rumors that Masai talked to DeMar at Summer League and assured him he wasn't going to be traded. That didn't happen.
Right. And it's a business, and so that's hard to remember.
But you can still be straightforward.
Right.
I think his reputation is starting to go down.
That's the thing I was going to ask you guys, too.
He has past problems with the media and his decisions.
That's what I was going to... You know what? Let's jump to that real quick before we get into it. Is this going to affect Toronto in free agency in the future in acquiring players, what they did here?
You saw it right on Twitter and social media, like Malik said. A lot of the players were reaching out to DeMar and saying, how can they do something like that? And there's guys that have spoken, former players that were a little bit confused on why Toronto had given up on DeMar and this no loyalty in the NBA anymore. So I think it definitely hurts them. I'm not sure, and they already have a bit of an issue getting players to Toronto because they don't want to move to Canada. Some of them don't like the cold weather. It's just a hard place to draw players in, and now this probably hurts it even more.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you guys to grade the move for both teams. I'll hit you with my grade first, and I'll throw it to Malik and then throw it to Joe. I'm giving the Raptors a B-, and here's why I say that. Yes, they acquire a top 5 player in Kawhi Leonard when healthy, but they also traded, like you said, the greatest Raptor of all time.
Maybe.
For a possible rental. You give up Jakob Poeltl, who was in your system, he was an up-and-coming player. He was a role player last year for a playoff team.
Can you imagine what Popovich is going to do for him?
I think he's going to, really.
I think
the only thing
7'1", athletic,
has a nice touch around the basket too.
It's going to turn into another Aaron Baines.
It's possible, man. I could see it.
I think he could be better.
But I think what Toronto did do very well with this was getting the top 20 protection on the pick. I thought that was actually pretty good protection for acquiring a player like Kawhi Leonard. But it's just the uncertainty. I don't think Kawhi is re-signing in Toronto. And to give up the greatest Raptor of all time, spoiler alert, Jakob Poeltl, and a first-round pick for a 1-year rental, regardless, even if Toronto makes the NBA Finals this year, but they don't win the championship, this trade is, and Kawhi leaves in the summer, this trade's a failure. Because you gave up 3 big assets for a one-time trip. Malik, what's your grade for the Raptors?
Are we just doing the Raptors or the Raptors and the Spurs?
We'll do Raptors and then we'll go to Spurs after.
For this Raptors move, at first I was thinking B, but the fact that he's probably leaving after this season, I have to give it a B- because, like you said, if they make it to the finals, and they probably won't win if they get to the finals.
Yeah.
Kawhi wants to go home. Everybody knows that. You just gave up DeMar DeRozan and a promising young center and a first round. I mean, it's a steal. It is a steal for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah. Joe?
You guys might be surprised by this. I'm giving the Raptors an A-. It gives them 2 options.
What sound was that?
What,
Thud.
Chris falling on the floor.
Why A-?
So it gives them 2 options here. One, they're obviously going all in on Kawhi. I agree with you guys. I don't think they're getting him back. As much as they might think that they're going to pull a Paul George, I think the circumstances are completely different. And Kawhi has shown no commitment to even just play out this year even. But if he does play and he's healthy and he's that top 5 player that we know, it gives the Raptors a really good chance to maybe make it out of the East this year. LeBron has always been their problem. LeBron's not in the East, so they don't have to worry about that. Danny Green is actually a really big pickup for them, I think. It gives them a spot-up shooter that's been known to be somewhat of a clutch shooter. He's struggled the last couple seasons, but
they can play 5-out offense now,
right,
too.
and it gives them that option to be able to have a shooter like Danny Green on their team, which they haven't really had in the past, and he's been there before. Like, he's been in big games, so I think he's a little bit, people are overlooking the Danny Green thing. I don't want to overstate it either, but I think that's an adequate pickup.
I'm going to be honest. I completely forgot about Danny Green.
Yeah. So
I'm going to move it back up to a B.
Oh, my God.
So that gives me...
I forgot he was a part of
Look at me, just swaying people left and right.
He's a really nice pickup.
But so Kawhi gives them a different option of how they play. And DeMar DeRozan's big fallback was that he doesn't play very good defense. Kawhi is one of the best defenders in the league, if not the best, when he's healthy and willing to play. So that gives the Raptors a totally different look than what they're used to. And again, just having a big guy like Kawhi that can do everything for you, both offense and defense, is really crucial going into the playoffs. And he's been there. He's won a championship. So he also knows what it takes to win. So it gives them that option to be able to go all in for this year. It also allows them to move on from the Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan era, where they just couldn't get it done. And as much as I love DeMar, and I think the way that Toronto did it was shady and probably they wronged him. That's for sure. But it allows them to move on from this era, and it will free them up in the future. Yes, they gave up Jakob Poeltl. I honestly don't think he's going to develop into anything.
Hot take.
I think obviously his best option is to go to the Spurs because that's where he can get the best development as a young player.
Also learn behind LaMarcus, too.
We don't know what we're going to get out of the draft pick. Obviously, that could be something. But it just allows them to move on to a new era. And then the only problem is now that they'll get this cap space, and it'll be really hard, like we said, to draw in players. They might be able to draw in some role players, maybe give them a little more incentive of money, but
if they don't get Kawhi, there's no way a big-time free agent's going to say, I'm going to go to Toronto, especially with how they did DeMar DeRozan.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. They won't get a big guy. They'll get some role players that might fill in nicely, and they've still got a good young core. They didn't have to trade Anunoby, and I think that's a big thing. They got to keep Siakam. I think all of these guys are pretty good. I think their core is still there. Obviously, it does hurt to lose kind of their pride of the Toronto Raptors and DeMar. But I think this gives them 2 options to go for it right away. And if it doesn't work out, they're not getting them back, and they can move on from this era and get better. Because otherwise, they're going to be stuck where Chris was saying, where you're stuck in that. They're going to be stuck in like the 4 to 6 area for doing their for their playoffs.
Yeah. And let's jump to the San Antonio side of things here. I'm going to give the San Antonio Spurs a B grade, notch ahead of Toronto. We talked about it last week, how the Spurs wanted to remain competitive, and this was probably the best move they could have made to remain in the West, in the playoff race, that is. They acquired DeMar DeRozan, who's a 4-time All-Star. He's 2-time All-NBA, averaged 23 points per game last year, and shot a career best from behind the arc last year in both shot attempts and percentage. They also get Jakob Poeltl, who's going to be a backup center there, potentially may start. I don't know who was their starting center last year. Pau Gasol, he could overtake that spot. They could have gotten better pick protection on the Toronto pick, but they got a blue chip asset. They got a stud in DeMar DeRozan, and they got a first round pick. That was probably definitely the best offer on the table, and also helps them remain competitive in what could be Greg Popovich's last year coaching. Malik, what you think?
I'm giving this move an A-.
Ooh, so you got Spurs A-, and then Toronto a B.
Yeah, I think DeMar DeRozan is going to light the West up this year because just out of his anger of the Raptors situation, and he's going to buy into the Spurs and what Greg Popovich has planned for him. I see him averaging around 26, 27 points a game this year. I mean, he's going to light teams up. He's going to be really focused at all times. And I think he'll improve on defense because of the Spurs scheme.
Yeah.
I like Jakob Poeltl more than Joey.
I think everybody likes Jakob Poeltl more than Joey.
I think he could develop into a nice 9-9 player.
Yeah, I think he's like that Chris Kaman type player, only a little bit taller.
Yeah.
Chris Kaman's better than 9-9 though.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah,
I don't. Yeah, he was more offensively talented. I don't ever see them depending on Jakob to get some buckets or anything.
Right.
But he'll get them every now and then. And that protected first round pick can really do something for them next year.
The only issue with me is it's not good protection. Like if I think Toronto could stumble because they were bringing in a star player and they took away their focal point for the last 8 years.
And their coach.
They have a first-year head coach. Toronto could be a 6-7 seed if stuff doesn't go right, you know?
I only see that happening if Kawhi's not healthy. Because if he's healthy, I think
that's another question mark.
The lower end of the East is so bad, they'll be fine to make it into playoffs.
But that quad is still a question mark. Nobody really knows what's going on with that and won't know until training camp.
Right.
So, Joey, what's your grade for San Antonio?
I have to give them. I'm going high grading. I'm one of those easy teachers, I guess, for this class. But I'm giving the Spurs an A+.
Oh my!
I don't know how you can't give them anything else. They got rid of a guy that doesn't want to play for them, and they didn't just let him walk. I mean, I don't think they were going to, but obviously the Lakers were playing it right. They were hard-nosing the Spurs the whole time. They're not going to give up their young assets for Kawhi, and Toronto swoops in and says, hey, we'll give you our best player, a nice young piece, and a protected pick. Obviously, the pick, we don't know how that's going to turn out yet. But just getting the Toronto Raptors' best player and a young talent for a guy that doesn't want to play for you and won't play for you and has kind of tarnished their organization, I think getting anything for him is great. And I think DeMar DeRozan is going to fit in well with the Spurs organization. I think he fits well into that system. I think, like Malik said, he's going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He's a hard-nosed guy from his upbringing. So I think he's going to get a little feisty. And it'll be fun to see him in the West. I'll be honest, to see him go up against some of these greater shooting guards, like Malik was saying, going up against James Harden and those guys. Because for a long time, DeMar DeRozan is, a lot of people have said, is overrated. I in a lot of instances, think he's underrated. Honestly,
is he the best? Was he the best shooting guard in the Eastern Conference? I mean, that's a solid. It's him and Beal, in my opinion.
DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, it's pretty weak.
Now he's going. Yeah, he's going to a star-studded when it comes to shooting guards, Western Conference. Klay Thompson. James Harden, the list goes on.
Maybe Paul George.
Yeah,
it depends on where they play him.
Exactly.
I think him learning from Manu was a big thing too.
That's true. I forgot about Manu. I can't believe he's the one that remains. He's the last one standing.
Right.
Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah, all that whole San Antonio team is going to be Hall of Famers. Tony Parker's a Hall of Famer. Timmy D, of course. I'm surprised. Is he already in there? No, he may be not.
I don't even
Nobody
know.
heard me say Bruce
I feel
Bowen.
like he's got to be.
Bruce Bowen should be. No.
I hate Bruce Bowen.
So your trade winner, I'm guessing, is San Antonio.
Yeah. I think both teams honestly did really great for their organizations and where they're headed. Obviously, like I said, the Spurs got rid of the player who doesn't want to play for them. The Raptors give themselves a chance to still fight in the East, but also a chance to rebuild for the coming future. I think both teams came out pretty good.
Is it a rebuild though? They still have Kyle Lowry. They still
Right.
have Jonas Valanciunas.
I think it's not maybe not a full rebuild, but it's a rebuild of seeing more of what their young guys can fully become, I guess.
Malik, your trade winner is San Antonio too?
Most definitely.
See, we're in unison here. You can't go against San Antonio. Like, I'm going to back up exactly what you said. You get an all-star in DeMar DeRozan, a stud, who will be a top shooting guard in the West regardless, Jakob Poeltl, and a first-round pick for a guy that wasn't going to stay and was done with it. It's a good move by San Antonio. I'm interested to see what ends up happening with Toronto within the next few years. If he stays in Toronto by some miracle and he re-signs there, then I think ultimately Toronto wins this deal. But I don't think that's happening.
the biggest if.
It's an
possible,
if, exactly.
yeah.
So that's why I have to give to San Antonio right now.
I don't see him and Kyle Lowry hitting it off like best friends.
Yeah, that's going to be weird too because he's the guy that replaced his best friend, you know?
Yeah.
And he's already walked in saying he doesn't want to play for Toronto, so those guys are already kind of like...
There was also a report that came out too that Kawhi's warming up to the idea.
Right.
Of course that's going to happen. It's going to be stories on both sides contradicting each other. But we really won't find out until July 1st, 2019.
One last thing before...
I don't know if
I
got some more
on.
questions too. But go.
Do you guys accept the apology?
By Masai?
Yeah.
That was actually going to be my next question.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
I mean, that works perfectly.
So segueing in.
To me, he just looked silly.
So Masai made a public
I
apology to DeMar DeRozan.
In his press conference.
Do you guys think that was a good move or a bad move?
I think... You go first, Malik. Go.
To me, it makes him look like, oh no, look what I've done. Now I have to come out and talk to all these people about it.
Yeah.
I think he was just trying to save face. He saw how poorly it went over and with other players and as well as the media members. I think it wasn't genuine. He wasn't trying to save face. It was strictly business.
Right.
And to me, he got caught in a bad situation and made the worst out of it.
Right.
And he was just trying to do the best he can to control the damage.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a PR move, and I think it was kind of just to cover himself a little bit. I don't think it was genuine. It's kind of unfortunate. I think he even kind of stated that he didn't feel that he told DeMar that it was a for sure thing that they were going to keep him, and they said that there was a little loss in translation between the two maybe, but I don't know. It sounded like DeMar was pretty sure that he was going to stay and that they were committed to him.
Segueing into kind of questions that unfold with this deal, does DeMar DeRozan go down as the greatest Raptor of all time? I'll go first. I'm going to throw it to Malik, let Joey ponder on some things because I know he's got some pondering to do. I think he is. He leads the Toronto Raptors in points, career minutes, career playoff wins. Averaged 23 points per game, 4-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA. To me, staying there as long as he did, the 8 years, also plays a role. He is the greatest Raptor of all time, will get his jersey retired, should get a statue. He put Toronto on the map and was a part of teams that had their best. There was the best Toronto teams we've ever seen. 59-win team. Yeah, they lost in the second round, but the year before they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Raptors have never been there before. There's a lot of things DeMar DeRozan did for this organization to put him on the map, and that's something you can't take away from him. Malik?
So, listen to everything you said. I respect everything you've said, but
I don't think you do.
I'm just gonna let all that leave my mind right now, and I'm gonna say Vince Carter forever. Nobody had more of an impact on Canada as Vince Carter. He put Toronto on the map. Nobody cared
Okay,
about them.
I'll give you
until
that.
Vince Carter showed up. He basically, to kids in that time, he was the Michael Jordan of Canada.
Myself included.
Vince Carter.
Even though I'm not Canadian.
There's nothing
well, I am
in
Canadian,
Raptors
but
history that will
not
ever
from Canada.
touch what Vince Carter meant to people there. Plus, he won while he was there. He was a superstar.
He didn't win nothing when he was there.
He won as much as DeMar DeRozan.
No, he didn't. He never reached a conference finals.
Yes, he did.
He never reached a
Allen
conference.
Iverson beat him in the conference finals in
No,
2001.
that was a semis.
I thought it was a conference finals.
Semis.
I thought it was a conference as well.
We're gonna find out right here.
Well, DeMar DeRozan had a better team.
I watched the Carter
Vince
effect
Carter.
like a few weeks ago.
I know. I couldn't remember. I thought it was the semis.
DeMar DeRozan has had better teams. He's had better players.
I'm pretty sure it was the finals because then they talk about how the Sixers go on to play the Lakers.
Yeah. After Tracy McGrady left, it was Vince and Muggsy Bogues and Antonio Davis, who shouldn't have made one All-Star team, but he did for some odd reason. Vince Carter, man. It's all about Vince.
Joe, I'm gonna let you go as I try to search this Vince Carter stuff.
It's all about Vince Carter.
I agree with Chris statistically, but historically, I'm going to have
It's
to agree
Vince.
with Malik here. When I think of the Toronto Raptors, and I mean, maybe it's my generation, but when I think of the Toronto Raptors, first person that comes to mind is Vince Sanity Carter.
He's Air Canada.
He
is Air
literally,
Canada.
I know Chris said that DeMar put Toronto on the map. Vince put
Vince
them
put
on the
Toronto
map. They were an expansion team. They didn't have a lot going for them. Vince Carter came in and changed the culture of Canadian basketball and how they view the game. I don't think there would be Drake at Toronto games if there was no Vince Carter.
Fair
100%.
point.
100%.
Everybody,
100%, yeah.
this will be a
Drake still talks about how Vince Carter, what he did for Canada and Toronto.
That Carter effect piece was absolutely fantastic, by the way.
right. It's just I understand the point of DeMar probably should be, but I'm just saying from my own standing, in my opinion, I think Vince Carter is just because of the historical background. But like I said, statistically, DeMar is, and I praise him for being committed to that team and enjoying and embracing Toronto. Like we said, a lot of players won't do. So obviously he's been a big deal for a lot of those young kids growing up, probably in the same way that Vince Carter was for me. Getting to watch him play was so exciting. So I'm sure DeMar means a lot to Toronto. He's definitely right there in the race. And like I said, I think DeMar statistically, maybe historically, Vince, even though they had a little bit of a bad breakup. But
the first statue outside of the Toronto Raptors arena should be Vince Carter's
I agree
between the
with
legs
you.
dunk
I agree. I think
from that 2000 dunk
I will take
contest.
back my statement that DeMar put Toronto on the map because it is Vince. Vince put his stamp on that franchise, that city, as a basketball community.
DeMar maintained what Vince started.
That's what I'm going to get to. Yeah, I think DeMar maintained
Yeah.
it. He was that next guy. But you're right. Vince put Toronto on the map. I agree with you in that.
DeMar with the stats and the tenure. Of
Yes,
how long?
and that's why
being
I'm
with its
still.
franchise.
That's why I'm going to give him the nod. The tenure is probably the biggest reason why I'm going to give DeMar the nod. He wanted to finish his career as a Toronto Raptor.
Right.
Vince, I know it's a gray area whether he really did want to stay in Toronto,
right.
but it came out that he wanted out.
Right.
And until you really hear from Vince,
Feeling that he didn't get the pieces
exactly.
and help.
But to kind of go back on what we were talking about, they did lose in the semis. It was Milwaukee Bucks versus the Philadelphia 76ers for the conference finals. So it was
Okay.
Toronto's first trip to the conference finals was with DeMar DeRozan.
Okay.
But yeah, that's such a great conversation to have that I'm bummed that we didn't get to see through DeMar's career with the Raptors.
But I agree, though, like, the only Raptors jerseys that should be retired are Vince and DeMar, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. Switching gears to the other side, do the Spurs make the playoffs this year?
Yes.
I don't know how you can't count Pop out.
Especially since I think this is last year, too.
And they made the playoffs without Kawhi last year.
yeah.
So now
Yeah.
they're getting DeMar and Jakob Poeltl. They're going to be better. So,
The West got better, though. Lakers are a team that's going to jump. New Orleans. No. Denver's going to be a team that
I
jumps.
don't know. It's
The
going
Lakers
to
will be
be
good first year because of LeBron, but
it's going to be crazy.
they won't be anything.
I don't
special.
know. Really, you can't pick the West right now. It's really kind
But
of.
I feel like you can't count the Spurs out. just ever.
No, yeah, for sure. You definitely can't. I mean, they've made the playoffs 20+ years in a row. You can't count them out. Before we switch into the Melo trade, was it fair game? Is it fair game for DeMar to be this upset? I think so.
Yeah.
With how it was done. Yeah,
He's human.
exactly.
Even though
It'll wear off, but
even though he should know it's a business, DeMar DeRozan has been known for being emotional, and he's come out and said he's had issues before with his emotions and his mental state.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not surprised it happened. The NBA is behind him, and I'm behind him because although it is a business, stuff like this shouldn't go down.
Just the way it went down.
It's a level of respect that you should.
I can't wait till they release a San Antonio City edition DeMar DeRozan jersey.
That 10 is gonna look nice.
I can't wait till DeMar goes back to Toronto and the standing ovation that he will get.
Yeah,
that'll be crazy.
Or to just see his buddy Kyle.
Yeah,
that'll be cute.
I hope that's like the opening night. That'd be so cool. But yeah, let's move on. We had another big trade this week too. Carmelo Anthony traded to none other than the Atlanta Hawks to join with Trae
for
Young.
the culture.
For the culture, baby. No, he's going to be waived. But let's get into the trade details before we get into it. In this trade, the Oklahoma City Thunder get Dennis Schroeder and Timothy Luau-Cabarrot from Philly. The Hawks get a 2022.
Strong pronunciation.
I'll say,
You like that? Yeah, that was pretty good.
He's been practicing.
That was pretty good. Hawks get a 2022 protected first-round pick, Carmelo Anthony and Justin Anderson, and the Sixers get Mike Muscala, which I think is an underrated portion of this deal. However, Atlanta will waive Carmelo Anthony, and Mark Stein of the New York Daily News reports that Melo will end up in Houston. Before we get into the Houston stuff, first reactions when you heard about this deal, Malik.
When I first heard about him to the Hawks?
Yeah.
As soon as I heard he was going to the Hawks, I knew. Well, when I saw it was breaking news that he was going to be traded, it also said he will probably be waived. So the fact that he got traded to the Hawks is pretty funny. But
yeah, in the end.
It's a funny story.
What do you think about Dennis Schroeder with Russell Westbrook in OKC?
If Dennis Schroeder, well, he has to accept being a backup point guard.
And
it's not a if. Yeah. He has to accept it. I think Dennis Schroeder wants to be a star, and that may be a thing that bumps heads with him and Billy Donovan and potentially Russell Westbrook. But if Dennis Schroeder is willing to accept his backup role, he can be one of the best backup point guards in the league because as a starter, he averaged 20 a game. Although they're kind of empty numbers because he played on a horrible team. But Dennis Schroeder is a good player. He has skill. He's very fast. His jumper has improved every year. He can be a really good backup for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's a good move for them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to let Joey give his first initial reactions before I jump into it. Joe?
I was confused. I wonder if Carmelo's agent played a trick on him and said, hey, you just got traded to the Hawks, and then didn't say that he was playing to be waived and just let it sit there for a little while and see what Carmelo did.
If they're friends, if I was his agent and I was his friend, I'd do that.
I definitely
I'd let him sit there for 30 minutes and just be like, it was the best I could do.
I would have said, hey, we finally got you a deal. You're headed to Atlanta.
You and Trae Young chucking up threes?
I mean,
no, I hear you.
It was definitely confusing. I mean, obviously you get the idea that he's going to be waived, but it was just kind of weird, the whole trade details and everything. Obviously it makes sense for OKC to get a backup guard, and obviously Dennis Schroeder doesn't have a say in anything too, but for his career, it seems like a step backwards.
I also heard that before the deal was finalized, Billy Donovan, Sam Presti, Donovan, the head coach of the Thunder, Presti, the general manager, they both talked to Dennis Schroeder, telling him, look, you're not going to start, but are you 100% okay with being the backup to Russell and playing with him at times? And the reports that I remember it said was that he was ecstatic about it. So,
how much longer does he have on his contract? Because this could be this if it's a short time, he'll be in OKC. This could be an audition for him. He could be looking at it like that, to where if he plays great as a backup, he's willing to fit into that culture. A team will be willing to pull the trigger on him as a starter.
And he's going to turn out like Reggie Jackson. That's unfortunate.
Let's not do that right now, Joe.
Stop
Don't
it.
piss his negativity today.
Yeah, Russell's a good player. Stop it. I like this move personally, especially if I'm OKC. They saved $73 million.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
Next
them.
year, they save $73 million, and I think it's 100 plus years after, just because they didn't have to use the stretch provision. They unload that contract. They're not paying anything up front for Atlanta to take him. That, first off, was the best part of the deal to me for Oklahoma City. But Dennis Schroeder, I like him. He's a change of pace guard. I think he can play next to Russell Westbrook in the backcourt, and Russell can kind of play off him a little bit, and vice versa. It'll just give them a different feel and more of a faster pace that, like Donovan liked to play at Florida, they can do now in OKC. Russell's not really that fast paced. He likes to slow the tempo and run the game his way. Of course, he's gonna run as much as he wants, but the general tempo is slower.
That's why I'm still surprised why a team like the Orlando Magic, like we talked about last week, didn't try to jump in on Dennis Schroeder.
Exactly.
Who's very lacking in a quality point guard.
Yeah, and I like to trade for Atlanta, and I like to trade for Philly too. I think I like this one all the way around. Atlanta gets Justin Anderson and a protected first round pick for Dennis Schroeder, a guy that didn't want to be there. He was disgruntled. He didn't want to be there.
Right.
To get
and
a first round
obviously
pick,
he wasn't going to get as much playing time.
Yeah,
as he was,
especially because Trae Young's drafted to take over his spot,
and they traded for Jeremy Lin.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, that too. And then for Philly, they lost Ersan Ilyasova, a stretch big. They signed Nemanja Bjelica from Minnesota,
backed out of his contract.
Who backed out of his contract.
One of the top 3-point shooters last year.
Exactly. He backed out of his contract, signed with Sacramento.
Bad move.
Well, he got paid. Did you see
That's
the
true.
contract details? Yeah. Good move for Bjelica.
True. Money-wise.
Exactly. Mike Muscala can fill that stretch 4 role for them. Not as well as Ersan Ilyasova, but he fills a little bit of that gap. And to give up just Justin Anderson, it's a good move for Philly. I like it all the way around. You guys have any more?
No, I mean, it's one of those smaller kind of moves. I mean, obviously the big name of Carmelo in there, but it's just to get him out of OKC.
Do you guys like the Oklahoma City roster as it stands now heading into next season? Or do you like the roster how it standed last year heading into the 17-18 season?
Last year.
You'd rather have Carmelo Anthony than Dennis Schroeder?
Because I'm going off of how you worded it. It was the start of that season.
Yeah.
I had higher hopes of Carmelo. So,
Malik?
I'd have to agree from that point of view because I started thinking beyond that, like what happened the rest of the season. But
right.
Yeah, at the start of the season, everybody I knew expected the Thunder to be a top 3 team.
Yeah. No, they did, and they just fell flat, essentially is what it was. Moving on, Melo to Houston, sign a veteran minimum.
Most likely. Not confirmed.
I mean, Mark Stein's confirming it, but
just saying. You never know.
I really wanted to say confirmed, but for that slim chance that
trade hasn't gone through yet.
All right.
The Hawks are keeping Carmelo.
Melo expected to sign the veteran minimum with the Houston Rockets is all but done. He will make $30.5 million next year. Add the 2.4 to his 28 or the $27.9 million salary that he's not losing a penny of. Carmelo just played the NBA.
Yeah. He's been doing it his whole career.
He went to the spot he wanted to be at. Play with his best friend Chris Paul. Play next to the MVP James Harden. And got paid more to do so. Hats off to Melo, his agent.
My man.
Exactly. Do you guys like the fit in Houston? I'm a yes and a no.
I agree 100%.
That's fair enough.
Now, the reason why I say that is it sounds good. It sounds really good. Melo paired with Chris Paul, James Harden, all that. Offensively, they're going to be solid, but does Melo need the ball more so? He didn't like playing off the ball last year in OKC. How is this going to be any different?
I think now that he's playing with Chris, I think they have great chemistry off the court, but they play together a lot in pickup games.
I don't know.
So I don't know what that says about an NBA game, but I feel like playing with Chris Paul, Carmelo will be more willing to play off the ball because he will completely trust Chris.
Yeah, but
to have the ball in his hands and get Carmelo a good shot at all times.
Yeah, I thought Carmelo came off as just a ball hog when he made the comments that he wasn't getting his touches. He's not coming off the bench. And to go to a team where he's likely going to get less touches playing for Houston this coming year than he did at OKC last year.
You think so?
I think so. Because James Harden's going to have the ball in his hand more. The second option is going to be Chris Paul. Melo's that third option, and he's a far third option.
Melo will get more touches than Trevor Ariza, but still won't nearly have as many touches as those two.
But I don't think Melo will come close to the impact that Ariza did defensively. And that's where it's a no for me. Because Melo will fit well offensively, but that Houston didn't have a problem scoring points last year. They had a problem stopping him. Melo's not going to help that problem. That's where I stand.
D'Antoni has to figure out his lineups.
Also, sorry to cut you off, but D'Antoni left New York because of Carmelo Anthony. Let's not forget about that. Yeah, they talked. It's all good now. He was the one reason D'Antoni left New York. And now all of a sudden they're buddy-buddy again. There's too many ifs for me.
I think there are going to be a lot of lineups where you'll have Carmelo and PJ Tucker playing together. Sometimes PJ at the 4 or Carmelo at the 4, whichever one you want to do, depending on matchups. There are going to be several different ways that D'Antoni is going to figure out that team on offense and how they're going to work on defense. He has to figure out getting Clint Capella, first of all.
Yeah, that's still
because
not.
He's the most important player on that team. Without Clint Capella, they are not a top 3 seed in that conference. But if they get Clint Capella back, I think it'll just be D'Antoni figuring out lineups and adjustments in the team, and that's about it.
Joseph,
they needed a 3. They got a 3. They lost Trevor Ariza. They lost Mbah Moute. Carmelo's their best option, and I honestly don't think you take Carmelo, who played bad in the playoffs. You take Trevor Ariza, who played bad in the playoffs. You get kind of the same thing. Obviously, Trevor Ariza, more of a defensive-minded player. I honestly think that there are games where Carmelo will be the second option. I am pretty sure.
Yeah, when Chris Paul's hurt, sit on the bench.
I've been following Chris Paul for a long time.
Oh,
it's one
of my breaking news.
Chris Paul's the type of point guard that if Melo is hot, Chris Paul will take only 3 or 4 shots a game.
Chris Paul is
if Melo's that hot.
The conventional point guard that can also go off, and he's become a very clutch player over the years. But unlike Russell Westbrook, who is go, go, go all the time, Chris Paul is very good at changing pace. And I think Carmelo is more of a half-court player, which doesn't entirely fit into the Rockets' scheme, obviously. But it allows them that option to do so. And I know James Harden will take a lot of shots. He'll take a lot of goofy shots. But I think Carmelo's going to have a better year. I think he still has some stuff left in the tank. I think last year was kind of a fluke year. I think it just didn't work out. I think this Rockets system works a little bit better. It will give him a little bit better opportunities for spot-up shots, and hopefully they'll allow him to get back to his mid-post game a little bit, that triple threat Carmelo that we're used to. And, to really bring Carmelo back, the NBA just has to allow hoodies in the league.
Oh, my God. I mean, they pretty much did it. They had the hoodie warm-ups going into last year.
But I think this is going to work out for Carmelo. I think it's a good way to show that he's still a good player. I believed in him, believed in him for probably too long, but I still got faith in Melo.
That brings me to my next question. Are the Houston Rockets today, heading into next season, better than what they were last year? It's a hard no for me.
Yeah.
Hard no.
But I think I'm going off of what Malik said because they haven't gotten Capella yet.
Do you think... I'm assuming Clint Capella's there.
If they have Capella.
They're still a top 4 team.
I know, but are they better this coming year with Capella, but with Carmelo minus Trevor, minus Luke, than they were last year? That's the question.
That's tough.
That is a very tough question.
I need decisive answers, guys. I need decisive answers.
I'll tell you, my initial answer would be yes.
Because you like stars.
No, I like Carmelo. I didn't like the Celtics, Chris.
All right.
I don't like the big 3 teams. I know that's why
I don't want to put words in your mouth. My bad.
That's why it hurts me because I like Chris Paul and I like Carmelo, but I don't know if I can like the Rockets. But I think my initial response is yes, but losing out on Trevor Ariza's defense does hurt them.
Malik?
I don't think they're a better team.
All right, are they...
I think they're just as good.
Okay.
But they lose some defense.
Yeah. Are they still the 2 seed out west?
No,
let me rephrase that. Are they the second best team in the NBA still? That's a hard no for me, too.
No. But
D'Antoni
I
team
think that's
always put up
more.
points.
I think that's more credit to the Celtics and what a lot of people are expecting out of them. This
Then
year.
are they the 2 seed out west? Do you think that? I think it's up for grabs.
Who were the top 4 seeds in the West last year?
What was it?
Besides
It
the
was
Warriors. Well, besides the
Warriors,
and Rockets.
Houston. Can't think of the 3 seed. 4 seed was Utah. Who was the 3 seed? Joey.
OKC was the 6th seed.
Yeah.
Who was
No,
the
they're
3
a
seed in
5
the
seed.
West?
OKC was a 5 seed.
Who
5 seed.
else was really good in the West?
Let's
Oh,
not
forget
ponder
it.
something
Yeah.
we're not going to get. Let's remember that. Any
I'll
more
look it up.
Any more thoughts though on this move? I feel like it's at best it's a draw for me. I don't see a huge difference in how Houston's going to be next year. Regardless of the big move, yeah, he's playing with his friend, but
Breaking news.
that's not breaking news,
I know,
Joe.
it's not that big of a deal.
But I do want to use the siren.
Oh, boy. We got the official
Breaking news
newscast.
into the studio, guys. Noah Vonleh has agreed to a deal with the New York Knicks. We had to do it just because we had the sound effect
So
ready to go.
moving
but-
back to the Houston Rockets,
Yeah.
I expect 55 to 60 wins from them.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I just don't think they're going to get past Golden State, and this doesn't put them any closer to passing them. Any more you guys want to throw in the Carmelo Houston stuff? Joe, Malik, nothing?
What do you? What
Just
do you
makes the
two
West
think?
even more interesting, honestly.
Do you think his scoring average drops, stays the same, or goes up a little in Houston?
I think goes up.
What do you average? 17,
Yeah.
18 in?
It was
okay?
like 16.9.
Okay.
Oh, really? I
You
thought it
think-
was a little bit lower. I thought it was 14 or 15. I could be wrong.
I'm saying under.
Under.
I think it's over. They're in a higher powered offense.
It's true.
Just
Good
the way
point.
that their scheme
Good
works.
point. I think it's going to be really close.
I say he stays around 17 or
Because
18
I think there will
points.
be times where he outscores Chris Paul. As long as he comes back to form a little bit. He did struggle at times last year.
He could hit 20.
And what is an episode of Views from the Sideline without talking a little bit of Pistons, guys? We need to throw something in there. I forgot to talk about this last week. I don't want to spend too much time on it. We're running up against the hour here. But Andre
Portland
Drummond,
was 3 seed to just break in here.
Portland. Oh, yeah, there you go.
And they blew it. So
that's why we couldn't remember of a good team in the West. That makes sense. Andre Drummond and Henry Ellenson are set to train with Kevin Garnett this summer. Something or nothing?
Nothing.
nothing.
0.
I will say that Dre's been talking a lot of smack on the social media. He was going at Celtics fans a couple days ago.
Why?
He went at Steven Adams.
Why?
I guess that's
See,
the
how,
KG
how
stuff.
can you not like Dwight Howard and like, I know Andre's a Piston, but
That's
they're
how-
very similar dudes. You know, they're very personable. They're
Andre's a better player.
a little bit funny at times, or they try to be funny.
Andre gets more rebounds. That's the only thing
Yeah.
that sets them apart.
Do you take Dwight Howard in his prime or Andre in his
Dwight.
prime?
Dwight,
Thank you.
it's no question.
That's all I just
Why
want.
do you
that's
want
just
to
all I
hurt
wanted
me?
to
Why
hear.
do you want to hurt? You like to see pain.
I was
Um,
just curious, you know.
No, he also said too, this was the kind of the crazy thing that this is why I wanted to bring it up. I understand you have to back up your player, but don't even get involved in this conversation. He said Stanley Johnson is better than Jaylen Brown. And his reasoning, Malik, wait for it, was that Stan Van Gundy doesn't like to play young players, so Stanley couldn't be his best self.
I agree with that a little bit,
I agree with the logic.
I agree.
totally
with the
agree
Stan
with what
Van
he's saying.
part.
but comparing him
But
to
that other
Exactly.
Jaylen
thing-
Brown or another player,
Oh my god.
yeah, that puts you in trouble.
That's
It's
a-
like,
that's a lot.
I
That's
like-
a lot right there.
I like the trash talk, but save it for the court. I think Andre's bored. He's working out a lot. He's doing all these things, but there's no games. I don't know. I thought it was interesting, something to bring up, especially the Stanley Johnson stuff. I hope Stanley takes a step, but he's not Jaylen Brown.
Andre needs to go to Vegas or LA or something and get all this out of him. Have
No,
just,
no,
have a
I
fun-
don't know.
Have a fun stretch. Come back and be focused. Stay off of social media. Stop shooting so many threes. Just focus, Andre. Come on.
Andre
focus.
shooting threes next year.
Go hang out with LeBron and
get
KD and
get in the
LA.
gym with Stanley and Henry every
They are.
day.
They're in the gym. Andre's in the gym with
Every
Stanley.
day. And just work.
Do you think them working out with KG is something or nothing?
I think Andre working out with KG is something. I think Henry's a lost cause.
This is the same as every center from 2008 to 2012 working with Akeem Olajuwon.
That's
Well,
true. that's
Dwight
true.
worked with Akeem.
The guy,
Oh my God!
the
what's
guy
gonna
that worked
happen
out with
next
KG
year?
last year was Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Giannis is different. Giannis is completely
Yeah.
No,
different.
I
I
get
agree
that
with
he's
that.
different, but KG doesn't work with everybody.
True.
And he did have a big impact on Giannis.
He also worked on Thon Maker.
But I also think that KG is a different.
Yeah, Thon Maker is like that Henry Ellenson to Andre Drummond, though. You know, he's like that throwing young guy that KG's like, all right, I guess if he wants to see something.
I honestly though think that KG is more similar in play style to Giannis than he is to Andre.
For sure. All viable opinions here. Let's get into our last segment on the show. We got a solid 3.5 minutes here. It's a new segment on the show. I'll break it down for the people.
Well, it's not really new.
We'll have a soundbite very soon.
Yes, we will have an intro
chorus.
song.
Yeah.
We'll have everything. It's called the Tysick Take. This new segment will let Joey Tysick give his hot takes or opinions / predictions on the NBA.
And
Joey?
to be fair, last week I was correct when I said that LeBron would be, or LeBron, it's been a long day. Carmelo would be traded to a team that nobody thought he would be traded to, and he got traded to the Hawks.
There's high hopes for you, Joe. That's why we're giving you the little segment here, all right?
So this week,
On the Tysick Take, what you got?
we're going to say Clint Capella is not going to be a Rocket.
Do you
Ooh,
have
I wish
any
I-
idea where he'll be?
You have to, come on. You can't say
Do
that and
you-
not
do
give
you-
anything.
Do you have
follow-up.
narrowed down to 3 teams?
I'm trying to think
Give
back
me
to
one team, maybe.
I'm trying to think back to who has money.
Remember when he was going to go
mean,
to Phoenix?
Atlanta, Sacramento. Those are really the only teams that have money without doing a sign and trade.
I think whatever's team is willing to give him the most money. Atlanta could.
That'd be interesting.
It'd be bad for a basketball move, but if he got the money and Houston backed off
That'd
and
be
said
so
they're not going to pay him,
That'd be so athletic, Clint and John Collins up
Right.
front, though.
and a young Trey Young, they could be a run and gun team. But it would definitely hurt the Rockets. I think the Rockets, in my opinion, I think they should pay him what he wants. I just have a weird feeling that they're not going to commit to
Really?
it. For some reason, I don't know. Like, it seems like it's just been taking too long. I know they have a long time that they can still wait.
What if he signs that offer sheet? That's interesting to me. That's possible. That's the thing that to me is possible.
That's true.
Him signing that offer sheet
Right.
and walking after next year.
Mhm.
Because once players sign that offer sheet, they don't go back.
Right.
That's really the last big domino to fall in free agency.
Jamal
So-
Crawford.
Joey's Jamal Crawford, Vince Carter too.
Jamal Crawford might go to the Lakers.
I want to see Vince
just
Carter in
feel it.
I
Toronto.
wouldn't be surprised at all.
I would feel.
You know, if Masai wants to save face, he's got to sign Vince Carter.
Oh man.
That's the biggest
Who
save
wants
face
to
move.
save face?
Masai, the GM
Sign-
of the
sign
Raptors.
Vince to
please.
Toronto.
That would-
Please let him finish in Toronto.
That would
That's what I'm
be-
saying. That would be the
Let
best
him-
move for him to be
yes.
like, all right, he traded DeMar, but he brought back Vince.
Right.
That'd
You
be
know?
so great.
Oh man. Well,
Oh, we didn't talk about Dirk.
Dirk signing a
21.
1 year,
21 years.
21 years for the Dallas Mavericks.
My man.